Hello, my name is Madison Wiest, and this is my video presentation and reflection. Let's get started. This slide will be used to state my purpose and introduce how the presentation will go. The purpose of this assignment is to reflect on 3 short video clips and relate them to my own standards of teaching. Within each clip, I will discuss 3 points: what the key learnings are from the clip, how this information impacted my own thinking, and what information I will take with me and implement as an educator and why. This presentation will demonstrate my own knowledge on 3 topics: standardize the format, affirmative checking, and no opt-out. As you will notice, each video clip has an introduction page with the clip name and number and will be followed by 1 slide for each question. This is clip number 2, standardize the format. You'll notice that for each question 1 from each clip, there will be a short part that talks about the techniques used and an overview of what happens, followed by some key points from the video. The techniques used in clip number 2 are standardize the format, culture of error, and tracking, not watching. In this video, the teacher, Megan, identifies student misunderstandings using easy-to-identify materials, which in this case is a packet, while systematically collecting data. Here's some key points from the clip. Megan begins with inferring and having students charge a word. That means that she wants them to point out whether it is positive, negative, or neutral. Because she standardized the format, she knows where to look as she walks around the classroom. Megan addresses errors that she notices by telling students to mark good as a neutral word because it is not always positive. Megan makes her rounds while observing. I pulled this quote from our text because I felt like it really described how Megan used standardize the format. Because she standardized the format of every packet, Megan knows exactly where to look. Megan spots misunderstandings very easily, which in this case is the students using the word incorrectly. She scripts out an example to illustrate how students should use the word, and then she asks her students to practice getting it right. Here is question 2. Here we will touch on some impactful information points from the clip. Using a standardized format, it allows you to disrupt your students less. This video gave me an efficient tool for gathering data quickly on identifying trends. I am able to now circulate and assist quickly when needed throughout my classroom during a whole group activity. I'm not having to search for the answers, and in turn I'm able to track, not watch. Here I've included a short quote from the text regarding standardize the format. It states, "Be intentional about how you scan your classroom." I definitely feel that this clip has taught me how to be intentional about where I'm looking at my students' work. For question 3, I will be discussing a few things that I would like to implement in my own classroom. First, I learned how to circulate quickly in my classroom while doing whole group activities without disruption using the tracking, not watching method. Megan made her students feel safe knowing that it's okay to have wrong answers. Once she established that there were students who were getting the answer wrong, she modeled how to fix the wrong answer. This creates a culture of error in the classroom. Here I included a quote from our text that I felt really stood out to me. Create an environment where your students feel safe making and discussing mistakes, so you can spend less time hunting for errors and more time fixing them. Megan let her students answer the question on their own so that she could continue to track and gather data in her classroom. She also encouraged her students to try on their own before asking for help. I definitely feel like Megan taught me some very important ways to implement Standardize the Format in my own classroom. Here I will state my personal and professional reflection on clip number 2. Megan used a packet as a way to circulate her classroom and gain an understanding of knowledge on the word disposition. As an educator, it is important to utilize whole group time by reaching as many students as possible during that time frame. She models Standardize the Format perfectly by carrying a pencil while she circulates. Not only does she point out error that she notices from quite a few students, she also models how it can be corrected. This clip gave me insight on how to professionally use a standardized format when collecting data regarding knowledge in my classroom. I personally believe this is a great way to help all students during a large group activity. This is clip number 6, affirmative checking. The techniques used here are affirmative checking, do it again, and positive framing. We see here that Hillary is using a ticket system to check work in exchange for independent practice. Now we will touch on a few key points. When the clip begins, Hillary asks her students to complete a problem on a green sticky note in order to earn the privilege of independent practice. She's making it fun for her students because she's relating it to a mission that you need to get into a movie. Students must show the correct answer to move on. By sitting patiently and correctly, students are able to be recognized by Hillary in order to move on to the next step. Each student that approaches, whether they be right or wrong, Hillary responds with a warm and positive tone. Here I included a quote that really reflected what Hillary was doing in this situation from our text. Her reaction signals to the student that getting it wrong is as normal as getting it right. Question 2. Here's some impactful information from this clip. Hillary checks for her students' understanding and involves the students in the process. I learned that students can take an active role in making sure that they are doing things correctly. Affirmative thinking makes me aware of how my students are doing. Here I inserted a quote that was a definition of affirmative checking from our text. Insert specific points into your lesson when students must get confirmation that their work is correct, productive, or sufficiently rigorous before moving on to the next stage. I also learned that checkpoints help you gather data. It gives you a more reliable idea of what your students understand. By using affirmative checking, I am using a process that's no longer just involving myself. It holds the teacher and the students accountable to reach a common goal, which is usually a basic skill from your objective for the day. It creates a shared endeavor between student and teacher. Question 3. In my classroom, I want to use affirmative checking as a tool. Here I've included a quote as a reason why I want to use this in my classroom. It enables you to be constantly aware of how your students are doing. It enables them to be constantly aware of how they are doing, and it ensures that their actions inherently reflect the data on their success. I want to make sure that students master concepts before moving on to the next step in order to prevent confusion. I can use affirmative checking as a way to gather data in my classroom so I can tell who knows what. I also would like to point out that Hillary used positive framing, which is using motivation and inspiration to guide learning. People are more motivated by a positive tone and feedback, so that's what I want to use in my classroom, just like Hillary did. Here's my personal and professional reflection of clip 6. By using positivity and feedback, Hillary uses an affirmative checking strategy to establish who knows what in her classroom. She uses a ticket system in order to verify that students understand certain concepts before moving on. Here she is allowing students to take part in their own affirmation. She is able to collect reliable data while providing constructive feedback to those who get a problem wrong. I love the way Hillary uses the ticket system to make independent work a privilege for her students. She relates it to the admission ticket used at the movies as a way to relate to her students. This is a great way to get students excited about completing their task and moving on to the next part. I love that her tone never changes and she is consistently providing warm and positive feedback. This is clip number 9, No Opt-Out. The techniques shown here are no opt-out and emotional constancy. David calls on a student to answer a question about who dreams the American dream, but who he calls on declines to answer. Now let's touch on some key points from the video. David asks a student to answer a question in whole group time, but the student declines to answer, yet David sticks with it. He responds in a warm tone, referencing previously learned knowledge. He reminds the students that this is learned material and refers to a previous discussion in another class. David asks another student to provide a cue for the original student, who also later provides another cue. David has the class snap for the student who provided the cue. David has the class identify that the subject is immigrant, and then he has the original student define what she thinks immigrant is. Here I've included a quote to go along with how David used no opt-out. Turn I don't know into success by ensuring that students who won't try or can't answer practice getting it right. Here is some impactful information from this video. I want to make my actions reinforce accountability for my students. I want them to understand it is not okay to not try. I love that David used Format 4 from our text to give me a great example of using no opt-out. Here I've included the definition of Format 4 from our text. It means another student provides a cue and the initial student uses it to find the answer. Cue here means having another student offer information to guide their thinking. He turns to another student and asks them the same question that he asked the original student. This allows peers to help in a positive and public way. And it's very impactful for the students who genuinely don't know the answer. Question 3. In my classroom, I want to establish a calm and thoughtful approach, just as David has done in clip number 9. I also want to show that David pointed out in his video using emotional constancy, which our text tells us is lessening the intensity of strong emotion, especially frustration and disappointment. It helps students understand that I believe in their ability. And it helps students become familiar with positive outcomes. When students hear themselves getting it correct, they're more likely to get answers correct in the future. Now I have the ability to empower students by using the no opt-out method. Here is my personal and professional reflection on clip number 9. David provides an excellent example of using no opt-out in the classroom. He shows his relentlessness while also providing humor and wit. From this clip, I was able to gather information I can use as a teacher. David maintains a pace throughout his discussion, even when a student is hesitant to answer. He is quick to call on another student to assist with a cue. I personally think he handled this situation perfectly. He was able to get across the point that the students should know this information. He reteaches the reluctant student by remaining calm and keeping focus. David modeled how I can exclude emotional constancy in my classroom while sending a message that says, it is not okay to not try. And here is my reference. Thank you so much.